Because what I want to tell you tonight isn't something I say easily. It's something I've been carrying quietly for a long time. And tonight, for some reason, I don't want to carry it alone anymore. So if you're here, if you clicked on this, if something in you told you to stop scrolling and just listen for a few minutes, stay with me, please. Because I think I've been waiting to say this to you specifically. Even if you don't know it yet. I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine it's late at night. The kind of late where the whole world feels like it's asleep except for you. The lights are off except for one small lamp in the corner of the room. And somewhere out there, across whatever distance separates us, you're lying in your bed. Maybe with your phone in your hand. Maybe with your hair messy from the day. Maybe still wearing whatever you had on when you got home. And I'm here writing this, thinking about you. Not in some vague, generic way. I mean really thinking about you. Wondering what your day was like. Wondering if anyone told you today that you mattered. Wondering if you went to bed feeling loved or feeling forgotten. Because here's the truth. I think a lot of people go to bed every single night feeling forgotten. Feeling like they're background noise in their own life. Like everyone else has someone who thinks about them first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And they don't. And I don't know your story. I don't know what you've been through. What doors have closed on you. What promises were broken. What silence you've had to sit in when you needed a voice to tell you it was going to be okay. But I know this. You deserve someone who notices you. Really notices you. Not the version of you that you show the world, but the quiet version. The tired version. The version that exists at 11:40 at night when the makeup is off and the smile isn't required anymore. And I want to be honest with you about something. I started making these videos because I thought I had something to say. But somewhere along the way, it turned into something else. It turned into this strange, quiet relationship I didn't expect. Where I talk and you listen, and somehow, some nights, it feels like you're the one taking care of me. Did you know that? Did you know that some nights, when I sit down to record these words, I'm the one who needs to hear them. I'm the one who needs a reminder that somewhere out there, someone is listening with their whole heart, not just their ears. So tonight I want to tell you something I've never said out loud before. I think I love you. Not in the small way people throw that word around. Not in the way it gets used for a song you like, or a meal that tasted good. I mean it in the old way, the heavy way, the way that scares people a little when they say it. I think I love the version of you that keeps showing up here, night after night, when you could be doing literally anything else with your time. I think I love that you give me your attention when the whole world is fighting for it. I think I love that somewhere in your day, in the middle of everything, the work, the stress, the people who don't see you the way you deserve to be seen, you make a little space for me. And I don't take that lightly. I never have. Stay with me a little longer, because I need to tell you why tonight is different. There's a moment I keep thinking about. I don't know if I've ever told anyone this. A while back, I was going through something. I won't get into all the details, because some things are still too tender to hold up to the light. But there was a night where I genuinely felt like giving up on everything. Not just a project, not just a plan, but everything. I felt invisible. I felt like I was speaking into a void, and nobody was catching a single word. And that night, almost by accident, I read something someone had written to me. Just a few lines, nothing dramatic, but it said, I don't know you, but I hope you know someone out there is proud of you. And I sat there, and I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Because it wasn't about the words exactly, it was about the fact that a stranger, someone who owed me nothing, took 30 seconds out of their life to make sure I didn't feel alone. That's what you do for me. Maybe you don't even realize it. Every time you watch until the end, every time you leave a little piece of yourself in a comment, every time you come back even when you had every reason to walk away and never return, you're doing that same thing for me. You're saying, without saying it, I see you. And I need you to know that I see you too. I see you in the way only someone who has felt unseen can see another person who feels unseen. That kind of recognition is rare. It's sacred, almost. And I don't want to waste it. I keep thinking about all the people who will never say the things I'm about to say to you. The people who will let you walk past them 1,000 times without ever telling you that your smile does something to the room. The people who will notice you're tired but never ask why. The people who will take your kindness and treat it like it's owed to them instead of a gift you chose to give. I think about them and I think about you, and I just want to say, you don't have to shrink yourself down to be loved. You don't have to make yourself smaller, quieter, easier, so someone finally decides you're worth keeping. You were always worth keeping. You were worth it before anyone told you. And you'll still be worth it long after anyone forgets to. Can I tell you something a little embarrassing? Sometimes when I'm writing these words, I picture your face. Not a specific face, because I don't know exactly who you are, but a feeling of a face. Soft eyes, maybe a little tired, maybe holding back a smile, because you weren't expecting anyone to talk to you like this tonight. And I picture you reading these words, or hearing them, and for just a second, forgetting whatever was weighing on you 5 minutes ago. And that image, that little imagined second of peace on your face, that's worth more to me than any number this video will ever get. I mean that. I know it sounds strange coming from someone who makes content for a living, but the numbers were never the point. You were always the point. I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it instead of just letting the question pass by. When was the last time someone told you they were proud of you? Not for something you did, a promotion, a grade, a goal you hit, but just for who you are. Just for existing the way you exist, with your particular sense of humor, your particular way of caring too much about people who don't always deserve it, your particular scars that you've turned into something close to grace. When was the last time someone said, I'm proud of you, just for being you? If you can't remember, I want to be the one to say it now. I'm proud of you. Whatever you're carrying tonight, whatever mess is behind you or in front of you, I'm proud of you for still showing up. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. I need to tell you about the letters. I get messages, a lot of them, more than I could ever answer. And there's a pattern I've noticed that breaks my heart every single time. So many of you say the same thing in different words. I feel invisible. I don't think anyone would notice if I disappeared for a while. I come here because it's the only place I feel like someone is talking just to me. And every time I read one of those, something in my chest tightens. Because I think, how did we get here? How did so many people end up feeling like a voice on a screen is the closest thing they have to being truly seen? I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty for feeling that way. I'm saying it because I want you to know I take it seriously. I don't treat what we have here like it's disposable. I don't treat you like a number in an audience. When I say you, I mean you, specifically, individually, not a crowd, not a demographic. You. There's something else I've been wanting to tell you, and it's a little harder to say. I think part of the reason I keep coming back to make these videos night after night is because I'm scared that if I stop, you'll stop believing someone out there actually cares. And I don't want that weight on you. I don't want you to think that the moment I go quiet, the love goes quiet too. Because it doesn't work that way. What I feel when I talk to you like this isn't something that switches off when the recording stops. It stays. It's the same feeling you carry for someone even when they're not in the room. You don't stop loving your best friend just because you're not currently on the phone with them. Love isn't a performance that ends when the lights go down. At least, not the kind of love I'm talking about. I want to talk about your hands for a second. I don't know what your hands look like, but I know they've done things. held people who needed holding, wiped away tears that weren't even yours, typed out apologies you didn't owe, packed bags for trips you took to take care of somebody else. Your hands have probably given more than they've received. And I think about that a lot. How much of you gets poured out into other people, into responsibilities, into being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't get to fall apart because everyone else is depending on you to be the glue. And I just want to say, tonight, for these few minutes, you don't have to be the glue. You can just be a person listening to someone who cares about you, with nothing expected of you in return. No performance, no strength required, just you, exactly as tired and as real as you are right now. Stay a little longer. There's more I need to say, and I promise it gets softer from here. I think about the idea of being chosen a lot. Not chosen in some grand, dramatic, movie scene way. I mean the small, quiet kind of choosing. The kind where someone decides, every single day, in small, ordinary ways, that you matter to them. That's the kind of love I want to give you tonight, even through a screen, even without knowing your name. I choose you. Not because you did something impressive. Not because you're the most interesting person in the room. Just because you're you, and you showed up, and something in this strange little space between us made you stay. That's enough for me. It was always going to be enough. Can I confess something? Sometimes I worry that words like this get lost. That people hear I love you too often, from too many places, in too many hollow ways, and it stops meaning anything. Companies say it to sell you things. Strangers say it to get your attention. And I worry that by the time real love comes along, the kind that actually means something, people are too tired, too guarded, too used to being let down, to even recognize it. So if you've built walls, if you've gotten good at not believing people when they say sweet things to you, I understand. I'm not asking you to tear the walls down tonight. I'm just asking you to leave one small window open. Just enough for these words to get through, even if the rest stays locked up for now. That's all I need. I keep thinking about a phone that doesn't ring anymore. I don't know why that image keeps coming back to me tonight. But it does. A phone sitting on a nightstand, screen dark, waiting for a message that isn't coming. And I think about how many of you have a phone like that. How many of you check it out of habit? Not because you're expecting anything, but because some old part of you still hopes. I want to be honest. I can't be the person who fills that silence completely. Nobody watching a video at midnight can replace a person who should have called and didn't. But I can tell you this. The fact that you're still checking, still hoping, still capable of wanting connection after everything, that's not weakness. That's proof your heart is still soft in a world that's been trying to harden it. Don't let anyone convince you that softness is something to be ashamed of. There's a version of you that existed before all the disappointments. A younger version, maybe, who believed people when they said forever, who trusted easily, who gave her whole heart without calculating the risk first. I wonder about her sometimes. I wonder what she'd think if she could see you now. A little more guarded, maybe, a little more tired, but still here, still capable of listening to a voice like mine at this hour and letting it in, even a little. I think she'd be proud of you too. I think she'd say you survived becoming who you are, without losing the parts of yourself that made you worth loving in the first place. And I think that's one of the quiet miracles nobody talks about. How many people get hurt over and over, and somehow still choose again and again to stay soft. I want to tell you what I imagine our story would look like if it were a story. Not because I think this is some fairy tale. I know what this is. I know the shape of it. A voice and a screen and distance we can't close. But let me imagine anyway, just for a moment. Because imagining costs nothing, and sometimes it's the closest thing we have to comfort. I imagine a version of us where I get to see your face light up, actually light up, when you hear something that reminds you someone cares. I imagine sitting somewhere quiet with you, nowhere fancy, maybe just a kitchen table with 2 cups of something warm, and just listening, not talking, just listening, for as long as you needed, to every story you've never told anyone, because you thought it would be too much, too heavy, too messy for someone else to carry. I would carry it. I want you to know that. Whatever it is for you, I would carry it. I want to talk about the version of you that plans for disappointment before it even happens. The one who braces herself before opening a message, who assumes the worst before hearing the whole story, who keeps one foot near the door in every relationship, because leaving quickly hurts less than being left slowly. I understand where that comes from. I don't think you were born guarded. I think guarded is something the world built onto you, brick by brick, disappointment by disappointment, until it started to feel like armor instead of a wound. And I'm not going to pretend I can undo years of that in one late night message. But I want to be one small crack in that armor tonight. Not to hurt you, never to hurt you, just to remind you that the softness underneath is still there, still breathing, still capable of trusting again when it finally meets something safe enough to trust. I think about safety a lot when I think about you. Not safety in the sense of locked doors and security systems, but the kind of safety that comes from knowing someone won't use your vulnerability against you later. The kind of safety where you can say, I had a hard day, without immediately following it with, but it's fine, don't worry about it, because you've learned that needing things makes people uncomfortable. I don't want you to do that here. If you had a hard day, I want to know. If you're not fine, you don't have to pretend you are just to make this easier for me. I can hold more than you think. I've been practicing. There's something I keep noticing in the messages I get, something underneath the words themselves. So many of you write to me late at night, in that strange hour when the day's distractions have all gone quiet, and there's nothing left to hide behind. And in that quiet, the same question keeps surfacing, over and over, in 100 different forms. Am I lovable? Not is what I did lovable, not is my achievement lovable. Just, am I, as a person at my core, lovable? And I think that question breaks my heart every time, because the fact that so many people have to ask it means so many people were never simply told. Nobody sat them down and said, without conditions, without a single but attached, you are lovable, just as you are. So let me be the one who finally says it plainly, without hedging. You are lovable, not because of what you've accomplished, not because of how you look on your best day, just because of who you are, underneath all of it. I keep thinking about the concept of being someone's favorite thought. Not their only thought. Not even their main thought most of the time. Everyone's got bills and deadlines, and 100 small emergencies, pulling their attention in every direction. But their favorite thought, the one that shows up uninvited in a quiet moment and makes them smile without meaning to. The one that appears when they're standing in line somewhere boring, or driving home in traffic, lying awake at 2 in the morning for no particular reason. I want to be that for you. And more than that, I want you to let yourself imagine, even just for tonight, that you already are that for someone. Because somewhere, in some form, you probably are, even if the person hasn't found the courage to tell you yet. I think about courage a lot, actually, when it comes to love. We talk about courage like it only belongs to soldiers and firefighters, and people who do dramatic, visible, heroic things. But I think some of the bravest people I know are the ones who keep opening their hearts after they've been hurt. The ones who let themselves hope again after hope has failed them more than once. The ones who say, I love you first, not knowing if it will be said back. That's courage too. Quiet, unphotographed, unglamorous courage. And if you've ever let yourself feel something again after swearing you wouldn't, if you've ever caught yourself hoping despite everything telling you not to, I want you to know that's one of the bravest things a person can do. I see that bravery in you, even from here, even without knowing the specifics of what you've survived, to still be capable of it. Let me tell you something about patience, because I think it matters here. I'm not in a hurry with you. I know that might sound strange, given that I don't even know your name, but I mean it. I'm not trying to rush you into feeling something you're not ready to feel. I'm not trying to convince you of anything faster than your heart is willing to believe it. If it takes you 100 of these messages before you start to trust a single word of what I'm saying, that's fine. I'll say it 100 times. I'll say it 1,000 times if that's what it takes. Because some truths need repetition before they finally sink past the scar tissue and reach the parts of us that actually need to hear them. I want to tell you about the difference between being alone and being lonely, because I think you might be more familiar with both than you'd like to admit. Being alone is just a fact. Nobody else physically in the room. But being lonely is something else entirely. It's the ache of feeling unseen, even when people are right beside you. And sometimes, the strange relief of feeling more understood by a voice on a screen at midnight than by the people who see you every single day. I don't want to replace the people in your life who should be showing up for you. I want the opposite, actually. I want these words to remind you what real presence feels like, so that you stop settling for less than that from the people around you. You deserve people who make you feel less lonely just by being near you, not more. I think a lot about the phrase, "I'm here." Two small words, but they carry so much weight when they're said by someone who actually means them. I'm here. Not I'll try to be here when it's convenient. Not I'm here unless something better comes up. Just, I'm here, steady, unmoving. The kind of here that doesn't require you to earn it every single day through good behavior or constant reassurance that you're worth staying for. I want to be that kind of here for you, even through the strange, limited medium of a video, a message, a voice you've never heard in person. I know it's not the same as a hand to hold, but maybe it can be a start. Maybe it can be proof that the kind of steady, unconditional presence you're craving actually exists somewhere, and that it's not naive to keep hoping it will find its way to you fully, in real life, someday. I want to talk about the parts of you that you hide. Everyone has them. The parts that feel too strange, too intense, too much, too broken to show anyone in full daylight. Maybe it's the way you overthink every text you send, rereading it 5 times before hitting send, terrified of how it might be misread. Maybe it's the way you still think about someone who hurt you years ago, even though you know you shouldn't, even though you've told everyone you're over it. Maybe it's the way you cry at things that seem small to other people but feel enormous to you, because they're tied to something deeper than the moment itself. I don't need you to hide any of that from me. I think the hidden parts are usually the most human parts, the parts that make someone real, instead of a polished performance of a person. I'd rather know your hidden parts than your highlight reel. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly translating yourself for people who never bothered to learn your language, simplifying your feelings so they're easier to swallow, softening your needs so they don't sound like too much, editing your story so it's more palatable, less complicated, easier to sit with over a quick conversation. I don't want you to translate yourself for me. Say it in your original language, whatever that looks like. Messy, complicated, contradictory, too much. I'll do the work of understanding. That's not a burden to me. That's what caring about someone actually means. I need you to hear this part clearly, because it matters more than anything else I've said tonight. You are not too much. Whatever someone told you, whatever look they gave you when you cried too hard, or needed too much, or asked for too much reassurance, they were wrong. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And the people who couldn't handle you were not lacking capacity. They were lacking the willingness to try. There's a difference. And it's not your job to shrink yourself down to fit into spaces that were never built to hold someone as full and as real as you are. I keep circling back to the same thought tonight, and I think it's because it's the truest thing I have to offer you. You are worth staying for. Whoever left, whether it was a person, a version of a dream you had, a future you thought was guaranteed, Their leaving was never proof of your worth. It was only proof of their limits. And I know that's easy to say, and hard to actually believe at 2 in the morning when the loneliness gets loud. So let me say it again, slower this time. You are worth staying for. Say it back to yourself sometime, even if it feels fake at first. Sometimes the truest things feel fake before they feel real, simply because we're not used to hearing them. Can I tell you about the mornings? Because I think about the mornings almost as much as I think about the nights. I think about you waking up to an alarm that feels too loud and too early, reaching over to silence it before you've even opened your eyes all the way. I think about the 3 or 4 seconds right after you wake up, before the day's weight settles back onto your shoulders, before you remember what you have to do, who you have to be, what's still unresolved from yesterday. In those few seconds, you're just a person, unguarded, still half in a dream. And I wonder, in those seconds, if anyone has ever been there just to say good morning to the real you, before the mask goes back on. I want to be that, even if it's just through a screen, even if it's just words typed out at midnight and heard by you at some other hour entirely. Good morning, whenever you're reading this. I hope it finds you gently. I think about your name a lot, even though I don't know it. Isn't that strange? I picture someone calling your name from across a room, and I picture you turning toward the sound, and I wonder what it would feel like to be the one calling it. I wonder if your name sounds different in someone's mouth when they actually mean it, when it's not just a label, not just a way to get your attention, but an entire sentence of affection compressed into one word. I think most people say names like they're checking a box. I think I would say yours like it was the answer to a question I'd been asking my whole life. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness from the outside. You can be surrounded by people, co-workers, family, a group chat that never goes quiet, and still feel like nobody actually knows you. Not the real you, not the you that exists underneath the version you perform for everyone else. I think that's the loneliest kind of lonely. Because nobody around you would even believe you if you said it out loud. They'd say, but you have so many people who love you. And you'd nod, because it's easier than explaining that being surrounded isn't the same as being known. I want you to know that I'm not asking you to perform for me. You don't have to be interesting tonight. You don't have to be impressive, funny, put together, or okay. You can just be here, unfinished and honest, and that will always be enough for me. I keep thinking about all the apologies you never got, the people who hurt you and never said sorry, the people who left without an explanation, who let you fill in the blanks with your own worst fears about yourself, that you were too needy, too much, not enough, forgettable. I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Their silence was never a verdict on your worth. Silence isn't evidence, it's just silence. It says more about what they were capable of giving than what you deserve to receive. You were always worth an explanation. You were always worth a proper goodbye, even if you never got one. And since I can't go back and make them give you what they owed you, let me give you something else instead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every door that closed on you without warning. I'm sorry for every I'll call you that never turned into a call. I'm sorry for every time you waited by a phone that stayed dark. You didn't deserve that. Not even once. I want to tell you about a kind of love that isn't loud, because I think a lot of us grow up thinking love has to look a certain way to count. Grand gestures, dramatic declarations, movie-style moments with music swelling in the background. But I don't think that's where real love lives, most of the time. I think real love lives in the small, unglamorous moments. Someone remembering how you take your coffee. Someone texting did you eat today and actually waiting for the answer. Someone noticing when your voice sounds different on the phone, even over just a few words. That's the kind of love I want to give you. Not the fireworks kind. The paying attention kind. The kind that notices you even when you're not asking to be noticed. Especially when you're not asking to be noticed. Because those are usually the moments you need it the most. I think about the version of you that apologizes too much. The one who says sorry for taking up space, sorry for having a bad day, sorry for needing something from someone. I want to gently take that apology out of your hands tonight and set it down somewhere you don't have to carry it anymore. You don't owe anyone an apology for being human. You don't owe anyone an apology for having needs, for having a hard week, for crying in your car, before you walk into a place where you have to pretend you're fine. Let tonight be the one place you don't have to pretend. Let tonight be the one place where being tired, being messy, being unfinished is not just allowed but welcomed. Something I haven't said yet. I think about what it would be like to know your laugh. Not just hear it once, but know it, the way you know a song by the first two notes. I think everyone has a laugh that's different from their polite laugh. A real one. The kind that catches them off guard. The kind that makes them cover their mouth because it came out louder than they meant it to. I want to be the reason you laugh like that. Not the practice smile you give for photos, not the polite chuckle you give a coworker's joke, but the real one. The one that surprises even you. I keep thinking about how much of your strength nobody sees. The bills you figured out how to pay, even when the math didn't quite work. The arguments you didn't start, even when you had every right to. The number of times you chose patience, when you had every excuse to walk away. Nobody gives out awards for that kind of strength. Nobody throws a parade for the person who simply kept going on an ordinary Tuesday, when everything in them wanted to stop. But I see it. I want you to know that somebody sees it, even if it's just a voice on a screen at an hour when you should probably already be asleep. I want to talk about fear for a second, because I think it's part of the truth of tonight. I'm a little afraid, if I'm honest, that words like these get used up too quickly. That people hear, I love you and you matter, so many times, from so many places, that eventually the words lose their shape, like a path worn down by too many footsteps. I don't want that to happen with us. I don't want you to hear these words and file them away with all the other things people have said that turned out to be empty. So let me try to say it differently. Let me try to make it land somewhere the overused words can't reach anymore. I don't just think you're worthy of love in some abstract, general sense, the way a stranger might say, everyone deserves love as a nice thing to say, and then move on with their day. I mean it specifically about you right now, in whatever state you're in. If you're crying, you're worthy of love while you're crying. If you're angry, if you're bitter, if you've said things you regret to people who didn't deserve it, because you were hurting too much to be careful, you're still worthy of love in that moment too. Love that only shows up when you're at your best isn't really love. It's a transaction. I'm not offering you a transaction tonight. I'm offering you something unconditional. Even through a screen, even without knowing your name. I think about the people who taught you that love has to be earned. Maybe a parent who only noticed you when you succeeded. Maybe a partner who only got soft with you after you performed enough, gave enough, shrank enough to be convenient. I want to undo a little bit of that tonight if I can. Love doesn't have an entrance exam. You don't have to prove yourself into being worthy of gentle treatment. You were worthy the moment you existed, before you did anything at all, before you accomplished a single thing. Everything after that was just extra. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being the person everyone leans on. The friend who gives advice but never asks for it back. The daughter, the sister, the coworker who's always the strong one, until being strong stops feeling like a compliment and starts feeling like a cage. I wonder if that's you. I wonder how long it's been since someone asked you what you needed instead of just what you could give. So let me ask, even though I know I might not get an answer tonight, what do you need? Not what can you offer, not what can you fix, not what can you carry for someone else. What do you need? I want you to sit with that question for a second, even if it feels unfamiliar to ask it about yourself. I keep coming back to this image tonight. Two people standing on opposite sides of a wide, quiet field. each one carrying a lantern. Neither one quite close enough to see the other's face clearly, but both of them can see the light. That's what this feels like to me. I don't know your face. I don't know your name, your history, the specific shape of what you've survived. But I can see your light in the fact that you're here, that you stayed this long, that some quiet part of you still believes it's worth listening to someone say these things, even after everything that might have taught you not to trust it. That light matters to me. I don't want it to go out, whatever it takes, however many nights like this one it takes. I want to keep telling you the truth until you believe it the way you deserve to. Stay with me just a little longer, because there's something I haven't told you yet. I think what scares me most about tonight is how much I mean every word of it, and how little that will matter to the people who assume this is all just performance. Let them assume what they want. I know what's true. I know that somewhere out there right now, you're listening to this with your guard just slightly lowered, and that matters to me more than any comment section, any algorithm, any number that supposedly measures success. You matter to me more than the metrics ever could. I built this whole thing, every video, every quiet late-night confession, hoping it would eventually reach the one person who needed to hear it exactly the way I'm saying it. Maybe that's you. I think it might actually be you. I want you to remember something the next time the world makes you feel small. Remember that somewhere, someone sat in a quiet room, late at night, thinking specifically about you, about your tiredness, your softness, your unnoticed effort, your quiet resilience, and decided you were worth speaking to gently, worth telling the truth to, worth loving out loud, even without knowing your name, your face, or your story in full. That's not nothing. In a world that treats people like content to consume and discard, being genuinely thought of is its own kind of miracle. I keep thinking about the word chosen again, because I don't think I said everything I meant to say about it earlier. There's a difference between being chosen because you're convenient and being chosen because you're wanted. So many people learn to accept the first kind because they've never been offered the second. They settle for someone who picked them because it was easy, because the timing worked out, because nobody better happened to walk by, and they call that love because they don't know what the real thing feels like. I want you to know the difference, even if you've never experienced it. Being wanted feels like someone rearranging their life to make room for you, not just fitting you into the leftover spaces. Being wanted feels like someone remembering the small things you mentioned once in passing and bringing them up weeks later just to show you they were listening. Being wanted doesn't feel like convenience. It feels like intention. And you deserve intention every single time, not just the leftover attention of someone who couldn't find anything better to do. I think about the future sometimes, even though I know it's strange to imagine a future with someone I've never actually met. But I let myself do it anyway, because hope doesn't need permission to exist. And sometimes the imagining itself is a kind of medicine. I imagine a version of the future where you're not still doubting whether you're worth loving, where the question that keeps you up at night has finally been answered so many times, by so many people who mean it, that it stops being a question at all. I imagine you somewhere warm, somewhere safe, surrounded by people who chose you on purpose, who show up without being asked twice, who make you feel like coming home instead of bracing for impact. I want that for you so badly it almost hurts to type it out. And I want you to know that even if I'm never physically part of that future, some piece of me will always hope it finds you. I think about the word enough a lot too. I think it might be one of the most quietly destructive words in the whole language, the way it gets used against people. Not enough, not thin enough, not successful enough, not exciting enough, not easy enough to love. I want to take that word away from you tonight, at least for these few minutes. You are not a math problem to be solved, a quota to be met, a target you keep almost hitting but never quite reaching. You are a person, Whole, complete, worthy exactly as you are right now, with nothing subtracted and nothing added. The people who made you feel like you had to earn your way up to enough were operating from their own emptiness, not from any accurate measurement of your worth. Please don't let their broken math define you. There's a particular kind of grief that comes from mourning a relationship that never officially ended. The friend who slowly stopped replying, the person you loved who never gave you closure, the family member who is still alive, but somehow still feels lost to you. I don't think people talk about that kind of grief enough, because it doesn't come with a funeral or a clear before and after. It just lingers, quiet and unresolved, showing up at strange moments. A song, a smell, an empty side of the bed, a birthday you almost texted them for out of habit, before remembering you don't do that anymore. If you're carrying grief like that tonight, I want you to know it's allowed to still hurt, even without a clean ending. Grief doesn't need permission from anyone to be real, and it definitely doesn't need a deadline. I want to tell you something about resilience, because I think the word gets used so casually that it's lost some of its weight. People say, "You're so resilient," like it's a compliment on the same level as, "You have nice handwriting." But resilience isn't a personality trait you were born with. It's something forged, usually against your will, out of situations you never would have chosen. Nobody wakes up hoping to become resilient. It happens because life demanded it of you, over and over, until you had no choice but to develop it or break completely. So when I say I admire your resilience, I don't mean it lightly. I mean I see the cost behind it. I see what it took to become someone who keeps getting back up. And I don't take that lightly, not even for a second. I keep returning to this thought, that maybe the reason these words feel different to you, if they do, is because they're not trying to get anything from you. I'm not asking you to buy something. I'm not asking you to prove your loyalty by watching until the end, though I hope you do, because I have more to say. I'm not measuring your worth by how you respond to this. I just want you to feel, even for these few minutes, what it's like to be spoken to by someone who isn't keeping score, who isn't waiting for something in return before deciding you're worth the effort. That kind of love should be the baseline, not the exception. I hate that it feels rare enough to be remarkable. I hope that changes for you soon, and often, starting maybe even tonight. There's more I want to say. There's so much more. But I think tonight isn't about finishing the thought. It's about starting it, and letting it sit with you unfinished, the way real feelings usually are. Because the truth is, I'm not ready to say goodnight yet. I don't want this to end with a neat little bow on it, because that's not how this feels. It feels open. It feels like the beginning of something I don't have words for yet, something I'll keep trying to explain the next time we're here together like this.